There are people in the Terra Luna Classic community that want to harm you and deceive you. We need to talk about the bad actors. If you follow me on Twitter, this is something that you've seen me talk about quite a few times, or at least allude to, of the bad actors in the Terra Luna Classic community. Now, to help you understand what's going on in the Terra Luna Classic community, we first need to establish that there are different factions, which is unfortunate. We should all be working together here towards our vision of reviving the ecosystem, making this into one of the greatest cryptocurrencies out there. However, instead, right now, people have started to go after their own personal agendas. Which there's definitely a degree where it's like, hey, fair enough. You have a vision for Terra Luna Classic. You think that this is actually going to help bring us to success. And so you pursue that opportunity that maybe is different than what everyone else thinks. Now, the two biggest factions currently are Terra Rebels and Terra C Vita. This stems from the fact that Terra C Vita was founded by, or partially founded by, a member who was a ex-Terra Rebels. Now, it turns out that there's some bad blood between those two, and that's where the issues start to stem here. Now, the problem right now is that these factions seem to have originated from the concept of trying to generally push people towards good, but it seems like when some of these factions realized they weren't getting the tractions that they desired, they resulted to deceptive tactics and sometimes outright lying and bad ethical practices even to try and gain an advantage here. Here's an example of one of these tweets that I believe is intended to deceive you, and let's talk about why. Well, first of all, let's read this line right here. Just take it at face value. Take it as how you would read this line. Terra C Vita already has the infrastructure operating. Now, this is in regards to proposal 11030. So for context, this is the separation of Rebel Station from TFL run infrastructure and assets. Right here, we have Rexys from Terra C Vita saying that Terra C Vita already has the infrastructure operating, and so why would we need to spend the money on this? The API doesn't need reverse engineering. And so if you read this without having a bunch of knowledge here, and you put yourself in the average community member's shoes here, you see, well, Terra C Vita already has the infrastructure running, and the APIs don't need to be reverse engineered, so why would we need to spend this $150,000 in this proposal? Well, this is where I believe it gets deceptive. They're saying the infrastructure is already operating. Well, the infrastructure is a couple different points. The first thing here is that we have a LCD, and then we also are going to have a FCD, and then we're going to have the API, right? So we have these three different key elements that go into this. As far as I know, as of the time of this post on December 9th, Terra C Vita had an LCD, and they might have had an FCD. This is something I'm not sure on, but let's give them the benefit of the doubt. They had these 2 points. They did not have this API section that is mentioned right here. This was not released, and if we go over here, we can see this is the date it was released. This was released by December 12th. So this is days later, and this did not actually come from Terra C Vita. There's nothing to clarify. This came from TFL. They were giving us access to those APIs, the TFL run infrastructure, the APIs that TFL ran. They had it privately hosted, so we could not access it. They made it public. So this didn't come out till a couple days later. So it was actually physically impossible, to my knowledge, for Terra C Vita to actually have all of the infrastructure operating. And so this is where I believe it's deceptive, is they're saying we already have this infrastructure operating, but that's just not exactly true. Also, on the same day here, December 9th, we had Jared from TFL, the person who has been working on this API to get it over to us, was talking about how there's hard-coded passwords, this thing's going to have problems, and the best solution here is to reroute any of the requests being served by the API to a new one. The API layer sucks. And then again, at the end, I really recommend not using it at all and just solving the issues in the API in a different manner. So Jared, in my opinion here, is making it very clear that there are issues with this API layer at the bare minimum, right? The API layer sucks. And then he's suggesting that then we should actually redo this or reverse engineer potentially and rework this or come up with an entirely different solution. So while technically this is true, it doesn't necessarily need to be reverse engineered. There is work that is going to need to be done to change this API to make it better and more functional. So while this is technically true, this now paints the picture to people, well, we don't need to spend money on redoing the backend infrastructure at all. That's kind of the impression that a lot of people get here, and that's the problem, is that this wording here, we've already established they don't actually have all the infrastructure. They have some of the infrastructure running at the time of this tweet, and the API, sure, maybe it doesn't need to be reverse engineered, but there is money that needs to be spent on reworking it. So while technically some of this is true, in my opinion, this is made to deceive people. Another example of a problematic tweet is from Rex. Now, this is Rex within Terra Rebels. You can see that right there in his name. He put out this tweet with this kind of laughing emoji right here, which I think is not ideal. And I told him I didn't think that this was the best thing for him to be posting. Now, in simple terms, what the screenshot shows is right here we have this LCD with the red. That is the one that's being removed. This was Terra Vitas that they were providing to TFL. So Rexy's, the person that we just looked at their screenshot, this was their LCD that I just talked about. All of the things in here that have the Columbus in it, that is TFL's infrastructure. That was the main original infrastructure. Terra Vita came in and provided this LCD for them to use. So what happened here is that the Terra Vita LCD had some issues with it. And so TFL actually switched back to their original LCD endpoint. So they stopped using the Terra Vita ones, which Rexy's was kind of making fun of in a sense here. And again, I think that was a little bit off character and this should not be done. Now, unfortunately, while we do have some of this that's just simply playing with words, getting a little bit technical, maybe some deceptive language, it does get a lot worse. And this is where, unfortunately, we need to start talking about the topic of doxing other individuals. Now, I put out this tweet on December 10th, and essentially what I highlighted here is how Terra Vita was actually doxing members of TR. So essentially we have these two competitive organizations. They were throwing some salt at each other on the 9th. They were throwing some shade at each other. And now we have on the 10th here, we had Terra Vita come out and dox members within Terra Rebels, including that Rex, the screenshot I just showed you of Rex kind of calling them out and making fun of them. They ended up turning around and doxing him. And I think this is malicious because LK77 asked, do you plan to dox anyone that is responsible for Terra Station maintenance the same way that TFL and TR dox people that are responsible for the wallet? And Terra Vita responds, and I don't know who's behind this. I have some suspicions, but we don't know who it is. They say, I guess that's a personal choice. I, along with others, have been subjected to physical threats from TR people. Now, I believe this referencing Terra Rebel supporters. I have not seen any evidence suggesting that any of the 30 current members of Terra Rebels have given physical threats over to Terra Vita. If I see that evidence, I will call out Terra Rebels, just like I just called out Rex from Terra Rebels for his slightly immature tweet. And then continues on, TR are not doxed either. Includes Clan's name right here. Clan Mudhorn, will not show his face in public or shows Rex's full name right here, Rex. And so the problem here is that you have someone justifying why they don't want to dox is because they've received physical threats. And I think not wanting to dox is a totally legitimate thing. We have seen Alex Forshaw as a great example. He ended up being doxed. And then what happened is somebody contacted his workplace environment and ended up trying to get him fired from his work. But it is kind of strange that in the same thing where you're mentioning that you don't want to dox, you are saying that TR are not doxed either. And then you include someone's first name and then someone's full name in your tweet. And now we sit in a situation where we are over 48 hours past the time of Terra Vita doxing these members. There's been no apology, no statement made on this doxing. Instead, now we have another Terra Vita member, Jets, going out there, and he is posting this link to a Drive document. Now, this Drive document, it's over 50 pages long, and it essentially is trying to accuse Terra Rebels members of being part of rug pull projects and rugging people in these rug pull projects. Now these Terra Rebels members have come out and said that actually they fell victim to these rug pulls too, and they lost thousands of dollars in these rug pulls. They did not gain financially from these rug pulls. So trying to verify that information, but it's clearly an attempt to discredit them. And something I can confirm 100% is that they say Rex, again, the same Rex who made this tweet over here, is part of this supposed rug pull scheme with these other Terra Rebels members. However, I can confirm 100% the Rex that they mentioned, where they showed screenshots of a profile, is not Rex from Terra Rebels. As you can see by this screenshot right here, they're trying to connect this other Rex individual to this rug pull scam, and they try to blur out some information, but obviously there's a lot still here, and I was able to actually backtrace and find this profile and find this Rex individual's Facebook page, and it's very clear to me that this Rex individual has a lot of tattoos that help identify them. Now, I had Rex from Terra Rebels, the actual Rex from Terra Rebels, hop in a video call with me on the spot, had him actually take off his shirt so I could verify he did not have these tattoos that this other Rex individual was showing off on his Facebook page. And I can confirm 100% that Rex from Terra Rebels does not have those tattoos. So this is not the same Rex. And the problem here that I think is really important to highlight is this not only accusing Rex from Terra Rebels of being part of a scam that he was not involved in, but in addition to that, now they're potentially pointing hatred for Rex from Terra Rebels to this other individual. And I know that they blurred out some information to try and make it harder to find them, but If you know what you're doing, you can find it within 3 minutes easily based on the other evidence that they provided here. And so the problem now is that you have this other Rex with his wife's information, with a lot of his personal information on his profile, that now people who dislike Rex from Terra Rebels is going to attack this other innocent Rex, or I don't know if he's innocent of rug pull, but innocent of the things that people dislike Rex from Terra Rebels of doing. And so now you have put this individual and their family at risk of attacks like we have seen in the past for Alex Forkshaw, and potentially other worse things that could happen to them because people believe that they are Rex from Terra Rebels. Now, the person who put together this document trying to discredit the Terra Rebels members was on the Terra C Vita Discord, distributing this information, having conversations with people about the document. Now, unfortunately, someone from the TCCD, there are plenty of other examples here of deceptive language or just straight up unethical or unacceptable actions that have been taken from members within the Terra Luna Classic community. It's not just TR and Terra C Vita. There are other factions, as I mentioned, that are doing similar things. Other factions that are saying, if a validator voted no on this specific proposal that we really support, you should undelegate from them and delegate to us instead because they're trying to screw you over. And in reality, maybe the validator's doing what they think is best for the chain, but because you disagree with it, now you're going to paint it as if the validator is this evil person, which is just not a fair thing to say. I would really caution you to question everything that comes your way, anything that someone tries to present as a factual statement, because a lot of this right now, there's a lot of misinformation, there's a lot of deception, and there's just a lot of bad practices happening right now that we need to be aware of, be on our toes, be careful, and don't get involved in some of this stuff. It just reflects really poorly on our community because people can look into this and see, why is there a big fighting? Because now Jared from TFL, for example, he started out very supportive of us, wanting to help us out, and now I bet you he doesn't feel that way anymore as people have taken his words, twisted his words to say something different. He had to call that out. He's seeing people dox each other now. I'm sure he doesn't want any part of this because he has a family too, and I'm sure he doesn't want to jeopardize them in some of these situations. So this really hurts our community as a whole, and we need to stand up to these bad actors. Hopefully this shed some light on the current situation with the Terra Luna Classic community. If you guys got value out of this video, be sure to subscribe down below, and I will catch you all in the next one.